Hello, and welcome to episode 4 of the Liberty is Essential podcast. My name is Donald Rainwater, and today, in this episode, we want to talk to you a little bit about the pledge to oppose taxation, or at least tax increases. And what I want to really discuss is the idea that the libertarian perspective will always be that any taxation is more than what we want, which is normal. We work hard for our money as Hoosiers, and we should get to keep as much of that, as much of the fruits of our labor as we possibly can. Now, I'm a pragmatic or practical libertarian, so I understand that we can't eliminate taxation overnight. We may never eliminate it completely, but I also believe that if I'm a little more free tomorrow than I was yesterday, then today's a success, which means that if I pay fewer taxes tomorrow than I paid yesterday, then today is a good day. And that's the point that I want to make, and that's what we want to discuss today in this episode, is the idea that our Republican friends in the Indiana General Assembly and the governor's office and throughout the state of Indiana, in mayor's offices and city and county councils throughout the state of Indiana, they love to spend your money. And they have no problem telling you that they believe in lower taxes if they're Republicans. But then they raise your taxes and they spend it just as quick as they can get it. As a matter of fact, most Republicans today love debt. And we will talk more about tax increment financing and other bad fiscal policies in other episodes of the podcast. But for right now, I want to talk to you about the concept of pledging to not increase taxes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a website that I believe is very, very beneficial as we look at which of our state representatives and state senators really believe in small government and lower taxes. And that is the Americans for Tax Reform website. Now, this is at www.atr.org, atr.org, and they support a very simple pledge. And the pledge as taken by those who run for office, who really believe in lower taxes and fiscal responsibility, is as such. At the state level, it's I, whatever your name is, pledge to the taxpayers of the state of Indiana that I will oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase taxes. Now, that means that if a bill has a net reduction in taxes, that someone who signs this pledge can support that. But if it has a net gain in taxes, they should oppose and vote against that bill. Now, I show you this And I believe this is important because we are in a session of the Indiana General Assembly where they are forming the budget for the next 2 years. And as part of that, they intend to increase the cigarette excise tax, create a new tax on e-liquids for vaping purposes, and, well, we don't know yet what other little gems of tax increases they are inserting into the budget so that they can get more money out of your pocket that they can spend on whatever it is they decide they want to spend it on. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to introduce, if you're not familiar with the Americans for Tax Reform, introduce you to their website, show you the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. If you've followed me over the last 4 years in any of the runs for state representative, state senator, mayor of Westfield, or governor of the state of Indiana, you know that I have signed this pledge consistently. And I believe in this. I believe that it is extremely possible for the state of Indiana to operate on the money it's already taking in, if not less. I know they can operate on less. But let's just, for right now, let's just talk about no new taxes, no increases in taxation. Now, the Indiana General Assembly several years ago voted to index the gasoline excise tax so that it goes up a penny a year without them even having to vote on it anymore. It's indexed for inflation. So that, to me, is just a horrible thing, because that's taxation without representation. They're raising your tax every year without anybody down at the General Assembly having to vote on that again, on that tax increase. That means that people 10 years from now, new voters who maybe aren't old enough to vote today, or who didn't live in Indiana when that particular law was passed, but move here because we know that the governor would love to have tons of new residents from all over the country, New York and California, come to Indiana. But see, those people never get the opportunity to vote for a state representative or a state senator who can vote against that tax increase, because that tax increase happens automatically now. And I believe that that is not only unethical, but it is just downright gutless to pass a law that says this tax gets increased automatically and we don't have to vote on it anymore. Just shows a complete lack of backbone. But that's my opinion. So let's get back to the Americans for Tax Reform and their Taxpayer Protection Pledge. See, they also have a pledge database, which is a beautiful thing, because I can go here to their pledge database and I can put in State House, and I can select the state of Indiana, and I can hit search, and it shows me the name and district of every state representative who has signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. And I just want to point out a few names here. The first one that I would like to point out is District 37's Todd Houston. Todd Houston is the Speaker of the House today, there's a bill in the House right now to raise the to raise the cigarette excise tax and to create a new tax on e-liquids. Now, these 17 people, including Speaker of the House, Todd Huston, have pledged to oppose and vote against any attempt to increase taxes. They've signed the tax. They had to upload that form into this database themselves. Todd Huston pledged not to raise taxes, any of them, to oppose. Let me read it again. That I pledge to the taxpayers of the state of Indiana that I will oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase taxes. Todd Huston, the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the Indiana General Assembly, signed that pledge. Tim Wesco signed that pledge. Here, let me just read down the District 91, Robert Benning. District 81, Martin Carbaugh. District 53, Bob Cherry. District 73, Stephen Davison. Now, some of these folks may not have gotten reelected, and they may not be in their seat anymore, but we know that some of them are. We know that Jerry Torr is still in the Indiana General Assembly. We know that Todd Huston and Tim Wesco, Jim Lucas, Chris Jeter, Michelle Davis, Cindy Ledbetter, Jeff Ellington, Timothy Brown, Don Leahy, Bob Heaton. All of these state representatives pledged not to vote for a tax increase. Now, I would tell you that, in my opinion, if I had made the pledge to oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase taxes, and I were the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the Indiana General Assembly, I would do everything in my power to make sure that the bill to raise the cigarette tax and create a new tax on e-liquids didn't pass the Indiana House of Representatives. I know that 17 votes out of 100 isn't going to get it done. But I can tell you that Todd Huston is the leader of the Indiana Republican Caucus in the Indiana House of Representatives. And if he has pledged to oppose any tax increase on paper, signed it. Don't know how long ago he signed it, but a pledge is a pledge. I would want to hear why he thinks he can go against that pledge and support that bill. And I think you should ask the same thing. And just real briefly here, let's take a look and see if there are state senators who have taken the pledge. There are 8 out of 50. James Buck, Dennis Cruz, Jim Tomes, Greg Walker, Eric Bassler, Michael Young, Mike Gaskell, and Aaron Houchin. These folks have pledged and I'll read it one more time. I will oppose and vote against any and all efforts to increase taxes. Now, did they make that pledge just so you'll vote for them and then they figure you won't remember it so they don't have to abide by it? I don't know. But I would strongly encourage you to go out to this website, and if one of your state senators or state representatives are in this database, I would send them an email and call their office, and I would ask them, why? Why have you made that pledge, yet you vote yes on new taxes? And I think we should all get a hold of State Representative Todd Houston, who is now the Speaker of the House and represents us all in that capacity, and ask him, are you going to use the influence that you use to get bills passed, to get the cigarette tax voted down? Folks, that's all the time we have for today, or at least for this episode. I look forward to talking to you again very soon. Have a wonderful day.